Ted Knock from Blades and Blasters here, guys, with our second part of our Roll20 tutorial. Here you see we are in a game. I just want to back out real quick and kind of show you the process of getting into your game. Obviously, you're going to click on it. You'll see Launch Game here. We've already went through all these other buttons that you can do and what they are for. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to hit Launch Game. Launch Game is going to bring you to this screen that I just showed, which is a white screen with a square grid. The first thing actually we're going to do here is I'm not going to do the slide. I'm going to go take you to the cogwheel and show you the settings there. Okay, so if we go to your cogwheel, this is my settings. This is the setting for the game. Okay, the first thing you see is your display name. A lot of people like to change this to their character names or their character name and their player name. This is kind of nice if you don't know someone's voice that well. You can kind of easily tell who they are by that. In Blades and Blasters, we don't really usually have this problem, but some people do it anyway. And for grins, the GM usually just throws something like this on there. And now you can see down in the left part where you see my Roll20 icon, or avatar, and my name. See, the first thing here is master music volume level. So this is the volume for the base volume for all the music that comes out on Roll20 in your game. You can adjust that if you don't want any music. You could turn it all the way down. Usually, people do something in the middle. There are other ways to deal with this, and this is a personal thing. So, it's just kind of up to what you want to do. Players may change this as well for the music level on their side. Here's Use Advanced Keyboard Shortcuts. We can click this little information bucket to see button to see what this does. So these are shortcuts that you can use all through the game. Many do different things, such as going to your map layer, your token layer, your GM layer, etc. Lots of things to do. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to go over these so much in general because if you want to do these, and that's kind of completely up to you. You can use them if you want, but just know if you don't turn this on, then it won't happen for anyone. So keep that in mind. Use window pop-outs for characters. So this is if you had a character and you wanted to open it in a different actual browser page. You could do that when you're opening the character. As it is now, it's just kind of in the same browser tab, and it doesn't really pop out a new one, which you can do that too if you wanted. Completely up to you. So enable background chat beep. This is if I do something in here. A lot of times you will hear a beep. I did not. That's because I'm probably muted over here, honestly. Maybe. Anyway, that's what that's for. Someone else will do it. It'll beep. Use advanced die, so you can potentially drag roll results onto the table into certain areas. You can do that. Not really that big of a deal unless you really want to do it. Enable 3D dice. You'll see this from time to time. So let's do enable 3D dice and enable roll. Automatically 3D dice, and you'll see what happens here. You see, you can see on the screen it rolled a graphical representation of 2D20. It is one thing to note. Some people like it, some people don't. It does take up system resources if you do it, so keep that in mind. Avatars, enable chat avatars. That is this right here. You'll see my avatar in the chat window. You can see I did that before. If I take it off and I redo it, you will see that there should not be one. and there's not. They went away, right? So that's what that's for. Enable chat timestamps. We can turn that on, and we can see same thing. It should. You see here everything 7:18 p.m. Okay, so it shows that. What else? Out of alphabetically sort token actions. So this is, I believe, oh boy, token actions. So this is if you have a macro and associated with a character, it will alphabetize those abilities or macros, which you will see later when we start going over tokens and such. What else? Game settings. You see these bars, right? And the bars you can change the color of them. These are statuses on the token. You can have a bar green, a blue, a green, a red, whatever color you want. And they can signify different attributes attributes on the token. Deck size. If you create custom decks, I believe this is actually the physical size on the screen, the deck size. Let's see. Chat avatars. So, as you can see, I have a big avatar there. That's the regular size. If I want to make it large, I could. Typically, we do names only. It just tends to obscure the screen unnecessarily. Not really needed. But you can do what you will. If you're using video, this is where that would display. With this, right, you could change it to the top, and let me just do that. So I guess that would be player video avatar location, and changed it slightly. Okay. Yep. Go back to name here. Movable avatar, so player controls, so they can move it around the screen. This is when you see inlay or overlays and stuff on Twitch streams. That's how they do this. They move around their pictures based on where they want their overlay to be, and so on. So this next is video and audio chat options. It gives you some technical options here, like Roll20 Web RTC, which is supported by Chrome and Firefox. We don't do it. We don't use video at all or audio through Roll20. So when you click that, it'll reload the game. That's fairly typical when you hit none, and you see it really kind of cuts off the rest of our options because they're all related to that. I can turn it back on, and you can see it'll reboot the game again. Let's look real quick. Okay, you can see that it did. And you have a bunch of, what's your video bandwidth. These are audio input sources. This is probably I guess it would be some sort of drivers on your own computer. You want to broadcast, what do you want to broadcast? Video and voice, just video, etc. Those are not, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because we do not use those. There might be a better tutorial for that stuff. I suggest, for us personally, we do not use video. It takes us out of the characters that we're playing, just seeing our faces. It's not that we don't want to be viewed. I think you will see in our videos that we do that as well, just for talks and stuff. It's just not, it's not something we like to do here on Blades and Blasters. We are more into just the audio only. I know that a lot of people do either the video or it just makes no sense to me. I find those games to be typically rather poor, even though people like them. I don't really understand why. Staring at the person and not kind of taking the character into account with just your voice and your accent and your role play is just, I don't get it. But people do it. So if you want to do it through Roll20 and not things like Google Hangouts or Discord even has video now, you can. Or you can just do voice through Roll20. It's been a long time since we've done any voice through Roll20, so I don't know how good it is anymore. At the time, it was not that great, but it could be really good now. I don't know. But that's how you all mess with all those settings. Like I say, we just set to none, and so all those options disappear from us. Okay. Otherwise, you have your experimental features, your transmogrifier, and your QR code for tablet. A QR code for tablet gives you a QR to scan. I have no idea what that will display to you if you do scan it. Not sure. Transmogrifier, very familiar with this. I will go over this later, but just suffice it to say, what this does is it allows a GM to transfer assets between one game to another, like so. If I hit Transmogrifier, you can choose the game you have. I have this, okay, Conan game, okay, and it has some pages already pre-built from that. I installed a map pack, so I could use those, or if I had characters and I could swap them to any other game I wanted, or vice versa. So I can just, and it's just drag and drop. But I'm not going to go over that too much right now. We'll talk about the transmogrifier later. So that's all your settings. The next thing I wanted to get into very quickly is slides. So here is your slide. Here is how this works in Roll20. Roll20 has 4 different layers. Okay, if you think of anything like some sort of layered image, it's the same way, and they have generally what's on top of each other. So at the top are your objects layer, object and tokens, what it's called. Okay, so that is for tokens of any type that you want to be movable. Okay, if you don't want anything, if you don't want it to move, then don't put it in this layer. Okay, the next thing down from that is the map layer. So the map layer is the background, right? This is for maps, you know, as you would. Items that you don't want to have move, like if you put a something like a statue or a torch that you just wanted to sit there and be seen, but not have anybody move it, you put it in the map layer. The next layer is the GM layer. GM layer is an overlay that only the GM can see. So if you put tokens in that layer that you don't want anybody to see, but you want to have them prepared to bring them out, you can. Anything, a lot of times I'll put notes in the GM layer that the players can't see, but I can see it. Things like that. And then the dynamic lighting layer, which is where you make all your dynamic lighting in that layer, which is applied to all the other layers. We'll get into the dynamic lighting layer later. So that is one of the more advanced things. We'll have a whole session dedicated to dynamic lighting. But those are your four layers. The last thing I'm going to go on over just slides, very basic, is a slide setting. Okay. If I go into page settings here, there's a cogwheel. Okay, let's go back. This button here is called the page toolbar. If you click it, it will expand all your maps that you have in this game. Now, realize that these maps that you see are from me adding that map pack earlier. I did not actually create these. You will see at the very left, there's a create new page. Each game that you start will have this start slide that's automatically there. And what you'll see is there is a player ribbon. Now, this ribbon is important. This ribbon indicates what slide your players will see. Okay, when they get into the game, or if you move it, you can move it at any time. You just left click and drag to another screen. What did you notice? You notice here that my screen does not change because I am not a player, I'm the GM. So I have to actually click which slide that I want myself to go to. So now you see I'm looking at the same layer as the players now. And then I'll scroll it back and click in. Okay, so we're back here. So I've shown you this. This is your toolbar. It's very important. If you want to create a new page, you hit this create new page. Pretty simple. It puts it at the back. Okay. If you click on the name, then you can change it. So new slide, and that is a description for you. So you created a new slide that way. Very simple, extremely easy. So that's the good part here. Now, each slide has a cogwheel of its own. You can see that when I highlight over it. This right here is just a duplicate page. If you click it, it will copy whatever that is. You could do that for various reasons. Back to the settings. So page settings are here. You click it and it brings up this. Okay, let's explain what this is. Page size. So this is gives a unit, okay, and each unit is supposed to be 70 pixels. It is the size of your slide, physical size of your slide. 25 units, so that's 25 times 70, and 25 times 70 in a square. You can figure out the math of that, and it will tell you a scale. Now, the scale is for measuring. So in games like D&D or Pathfinder, usually 1 square is 5 feet, so that's what it's defaulted to. You can change the color, okay, as well, if you want. Say you wanted it red. That's the background color. You can turn a grid on or off. Okay, we'll just leave it on, and you can change the size of your units. Okay, so how big are your squares? You can use squares or vertical hexes or horizontal hexes for things like GURPS. And the measurements, okay, right? I don't know what Manhattan and Euclidean is, but I know what D&D and Pathfinder are, so that's that. Opacity is how dark the grid lines are, and the grid lines start at gray. You can change this opacity to make it very, very dark, or barely you can see it. Those are the basic things. Here we get to more advanced things. Fog of War. These things are supported by plus accounts. Fog of War might be actually a basic account tool, and it just really depends on what you want to do. Fog of War, as you know, or you might not know, is you turn on Fog of War, and so somebody can't see something based on where their token is, and once they move through it, they can see everything that they pass behind. So that's Fog of War. And there are 3 options for that: dim light reveal, show grid enabled. Not going to go into the details of Fog of War just now. We're going to have a more detailed session on that later. Dynamic lighting, right? If you want to enable dynamic lighting for the slide, you need to come in here. This enabled and enforced line of sight, only update on drag, restrict movement, etc. So those will be covered more in detail on the dynamic lighting. Global illumination is a little different. A global illumination assumes that you have dynamic lighting on. If you do, global illumination assumes that it is either day or night. So if you want to be day, you would click global illumination. If you wanted it to be night, you would unclick it, and that basically gives you an idea of what you would see. Your site would still be obscured by whatever you have dynamic lighting on, but as far as that goes, that is day or night for you. GM opacity is basically the same thing as opacity, only it's what you see, not the players see. Play on load is your music. So when you pull the banner over, it will start playing this song. Or if you launch into the game and the player banner is on this slide, it will launch the song automatically. Then you can delete the page, self-explanatory, or archive the page, which is also self-explanatory if you just kind of want it to go off your toolbar there and go into a folder that you don't see again until you bring it back out. Hit OK. And there's some of the changes we made. We didn't really do too much. Okay, so that's the very basic of making a slide. I know this is still very basic, guys, but I want to give you the step-by-step instructions to make this work for you. So I'm just doing this very step-by-step, and hopefully this is helpful. And this is Tetnock from Blades and Blasters. This is your slide basics. Thanks, and see you next time.